Hello and welcome back to One on One, New York's longest running sports call-in show, remembering the life and legacy of Vin Scully this evening. With Danny Scott, I'm Colin Loughran, and we're now joined by FUV alum, Yankees and Nets play-by-play man for the Yes Network, Ryan Ruocco. Ryan, how are you doing today?
I'm good, man. I appreciate you guys doing the show, putting this on for Vin, and appreciate you giving me the opportunity to contribute.
Of course, we're so grateful to have you with us. Obviously, Vin was a huge part of FUV's early history and journey towards the living entity it is today. I've come to understand he may have led a workshop during your time at Fordham. Could you speak about the kind of impact his work in the booth had on you and other young broadcasters that called FUV home?
Yeah, I mean, I think, first of all, for so many people who were students of FUV during the time of Bob Aarons, Bob was very close with Vin, and a lot of Bob's broadcasting philosophy was shaped by Vin. And so, not only did we have direct access to Vin through Bob, but we also had this vessel of Bob Aarons to Vin's teaching. And obviously that's now continued in the aftermath of Bob with Bobby C and what you guys are doing at FUV now. And so there's definitely a feeling of, Vin's influence being felt beyond just his direct words, but then he did also make himself available to us. And his workshop, there's so many different things that I remember from his workshop that he did with us. But I think the point is a paramount one. And it's that, you can't be, the best Daniel Scott. Colin, you can't, right? Only Daniel can. And Daniel, you can't be the best Colin. Only Colin can. And there's an authenticity that comes with a comfort in being yourself in the booth, and the audience picks up on that, especially when you're going to be in the booth as much as you are when you're going to be a play-by-play broadcaster, and the audience gets to know you, and I think it's you need to sound authentic, and then you also need to, in order to be good, you need to be comfortable, and being yourself is the only way to achieve those two things. So that piece of advice from Vin that he shared with us, that Bob would share with us as well, that Red Barber shared with him, I always think about, and to this day, is one of the two foundational pieces of advice I always share with young broadcasters.
Yeah, I'm wondering if you could maybe tell us a little personal story that you and Vin had that you'd be willing to share with us and all the listeners.
Yeah, so when I was a senior in college, it was the first ever FUV Spring Gala. And the Vin Scully Award, Lifetime Achievement Award, was being given to Vin Scully as the first ever recipient. And Bob, knowing that I was our lead play-by-play guy as a senior, he arranged for me to be Vin's usher, if you will, for the evening. So I got to basically be with Vin, help him around throughout the entire night. And that meant Vin also wanting to spend, some time off alone, because at that point he was, I don't know, maybe he was mid 80s at that point. I'm trying to think what year. He was 94 now in 2022. So he was 80, and he was moving around fine, but he just, he did plenty of the cocktail hour type conversation and was ready for a break. So he said, Ryan, how about me and you find a little area to sit down and talk for a minute? So I'm his, escort usher for the night. So I get to go, find a bank of couches, and it's just me and Vin Scully talking for 45 minutes, just the two of us. He tells me a lot of different useful things, but some of the things that I often recite, and my wife knows well because of how often I say it to her and she laughs, is he said to me, Ryan, there's nothing glamorous about getting into a hotel room at 3 a.m. after flying cross country and being away from your family. people think this business is glamorous, but it's not. And I always remember that. And I do have that feeling now. And part of his point was also, you have to love the job. Like, you can't be in it for the glamour. It's not actually glamorous. What it is really fun if you love it, you know, and for me, that is the case. And for Vin, that obviously was the case. And then another thing he said, Ryan, what you'll find the longer you're in this business is the older you are, the more they pay you to do less. You'll get paid way more to do a whole lot less. And I'm waiting for that part to kick in, but I am very much excited for it when it does. And of course, you know, Vin just had a way of delivering these sort of axioms. I think that, you know, I saw one of the stories circulating was when he talked about Madison Bumgarner and his wife finding these live birds in a dead rattlesnake and saving one of the birds after they found the eggs, just like him doing that in the midst of a 5-pitch walk followed by a single effortlessly. But he would do that kind of thing all the time. And I don't remember it well enough to recite completely, but that he told, I believe, not during a broadcast, but when he did the commencement address at Fordham, was him calling a former teammate at Fordham's home run in the major leagues. And the just chills of hearing Vin tell that story and thinking back to their time together at Fordham was just incredible. But he had that ability. And in baseball, you need that, right? Like, baseball broadcasts are driven by the stories, not the action. And there was no better storyteller in the history of sports broadcasting than Vin Scully.
Yeah, kind of keeping on with that theme, what do you think separated him and made him the best, and in my opinion, the best all-time broadcaster?
I think that Vin had, to that point about being yourself, a very unique style where, you know, he was so authentically himself. And, you know, you'd never say, oh, Vin didn't sound like anybody else. Vin sounded like Vin. And I think that's a huge part of what made him excellent, was him sounding so uniquely like himself. I think that, you know, some of the other things that stood out was not just his unique ability to tell a story that you haven't heard before, and the way that he would tell it so that you'd remember it, but also sort of the earnest sound in his voice. You know, you listen to Vin Scully talk and you're just like, this is a good man, you know, and it's not, I don't think that's an easy thing to convey. Even as I say it, if I was to say, what does it sound like to sound like a good man? The only way I could really describe it is to say it sounds like Vin Scully. You know, you just listen to him talk and you just say, that is a, you know, kind, righteous, good-hearted person. Somehow in his voice, he was able to convey that. And I think that also allowed for his audience to feel more connected to him. Not just because he was the vessel to the team that they loved, but because he had this very unique, good-natured sound that they could sense, that sort of was a window into his soul, and that he shared with them every summer night.
You touched on it there. You know, while it's incredible to reflect on the life of Vin Scully, the broadcaster, over the past couple of days, we've had, you know, just as much, if not more, come out about Vin Scully, the man. Ryan, what can you say, if anything, about the type of person Vin was?
Well, the only thing, you know, my interactions with Vin were incredible, and he could not have been more gracious with his time or more kind. And I think that, you know, when you are talking about someone who is famous and has a lot of demands on them, and that's a hero of yours, that's all you can ask for, right? Is for them to, you know, to for you to come away from those interactions saying, wow, like they were so generous with their time, and they were so kind and engaging, and Vin was all of those things. But then, excuse me, then you think about it from the standpoint of somebody who does really know him, and that's Bob Aarons. And the way I would see Vin be with Bob, and Vin's wife with Bob as well, and the way they would treat him, the kindness, the way they'd open their home to him, the way Vin would just give him 30 minutes on the phone, the way he was always there for Bob and for the program for anything we needed, you know, the same way you suspected him being that kind of person, just hearing the tone of his voice. The actions I saw to people who really knew him showed that to me as well.
Yeah, kind of my final question, a similar question. What legacy is Vin Scully leaving behind in the world of baseball?
Well, I think it's interesting because one of the things Vin used to say, and he said it on the workshop, is, you know, you don't ever want to get too close with any of the players you're covering, because the day is going to come where you have to criticize them, and it's harder to criticize a friend. And I think he had a couple cautionary tales of that from early in his career. But the irony is everybody he covered loved him, and they loved him because of I think the way he told their stories, the way he allowed the fan to feel connected to the player because of the stories he told. I think also because you could see he just loved baseball. You know, to me, when you ask that question of his legacy for baseball, it's Vin Scully is everything that's good about baseball. You know, it's about the familiarity, the feeling of this being a part of your summer, this being in the background of your summer nights, you know, the feeling of remembering where you were when you heard the call, you know, the feeling of this person hanging out with you in your living room and feeling like you know them, even if you've never met them. And Vin Scully was the ultimate champion of the sport and the things that we treasure most about the essence of baseball. And so when I think about Vin, I think of him from a broadcasting standpoint as setting the standard that we will all strive for yet never reach. I think about the generosity he showed to all of us in the business. And then I think about the love he had for me and the way everybody would feel that, and how he really embodied what was best about the sport. And I know that as long as they play the game of baseball, they will talk about Vin Scully.
Brian, we know you're a busy man, so we're going to let you go here. Thank you so much for joining us in remembering the life and legacy of Vin Scully, a truly great broadcaster, an even greater man. Everyone, stay tuned to One on One, New York's longest running sports call-in show.